Hi everybody, Ron Placone here. You're listening to another summary from the Indie Bohemians morning show, and I had an interesting discussion today. First of all, for anybody that was tuning in, last week we were off, but the week before that, I mentioned I've been looking for a new hairstyle. I found it, so next week my hair is going to look different. Yeah, I haven't totally settled, but tomorrow I'm going for my haircut. It will probably be after tomorrow's summary, so my hair will be the same tomorrow. So you got one more day of this fun little mop here, but be sure to tune in Monday because I will have a different hairdo. Cool. So we had a discussion today because recently DNA evidence freed two men that had been imprisoned for over 30 years. One of the gentlemen was on death row. He had been sentenced to the death penalty. The other was serving a life sentence. Henry Lee McCollum and Leon Brown were their names. They were half-brothers. Well, they are half-brothers. And they were accused of raping and murdering an 11-year-old girl in a rural town in North Carolina. They were found guilty. Now, back in the day, I actually looking at the article, and I posted the link. It turns out these guys were just new in town at the time. They were young. One was 19, one was 15, and nobody really knew them. They were just the new people in town. They were outsiders, and so one person was just like, oh, I think it was them, and that was enough for them to be brought in. Apparently, both of them do suffer from a mental disability. They were drilled for 5 hours, and they did not have a parent present, which the 15-year-old arguably should have definitely had a parent present or some other adult. They had no lawyer present or anything like that. It was just them and the authorities, and this kind of this apparent confession was sort of forced out of them. They were so scared, they just wanted to go home, and then they thought that if they confessed, they were basically forced into confessing more or less. And that was just used as evidence to say, hey, they did this, and they were thrown in jail. One of them was given the death sentence. And DNA evidence has proved that they were innocent. They didn't do this. And they lost 30 years of their life that they can't get back. No matter what, they will not get that 30 years back, which is tragic. And this is not necessarily a new story. You know, a more kind of popular story, at least in pop culture and so forth, was the West Memphis Three, who has since been released from prison. They didn't lose 30 years of their life. They only lost, I think, around 15 approximately. So, but that was another similar case where they were outsiders. There was really no evidence linking them to the murder. It was three teenagers, and the evidence, quote unquote, against them was that they listened to heavy metal music. They listened to rock music. They dressed in goth clothing. They were kids. And they said that they murdered these other kids in a satanic ritual. There was really no evidence linking them to it, but they were outsiders in a small community. And they got sentenced. And of course, you know, Eddie Vedder came to their aid. A lot of musicians came forward to speak out for them, because basically this was just kids that were different, that liked rock and roll music, that were being targeted because of that. And they were eventually set free. They are free now, but it has not been easy for them. And when they were set free, they basically just kind of had to sign a thing, say they were being let go, and they served the time served. It wasn't like their names were cleared necessarily or anything like that. So my point, this is not a new story, which leads to the bigger question: is it time in our society that we maybe abolish the death penalty? That's a question that constantly comes up in contemporary American society, and a question that should be asked with some amount of regularity, because there are cases like this where wrongfully accused people are put on death row, and you have these institutions, these programs to seek out answers of people that were wrongfully accused, or kind of try to find more information to look into these cases. And if it wasn't for some of those institutions in North Carolina, these two men would still be in jail. You know, if it wasn't for all the activism and all the people that spoke out and all the people that volunteered their time and services to try to find more evidence, the West Memphis Three would likely still be in jail. So there's a lot of holes in our justice system, and there's a lot of statistics and work that's done that determines there's a good amount of wrongfully accused people on death row. And with that fact in mind, is it time that maybe we get rid of the death penalty? You know, we have a significant problem with violence in our society, especially compared to a lot of other countries. Well, maybe that's kind of reflective on the fact that we go towards something like death penalty. I mean, I myself am in favor of abolishing the death penalty, and I understand that, you know, there's different perspectives out there. Some people make the argument, well, gee, you know, these people that are murderers and rapists and are just ruthless criminals, do we really want to spend all this money keeping them in prison and stuff like that? And my response to that is yeah. I think that a life sentence is a more efficient way to deal with criminals than the death penalty. Not only that, but, you know, if you're going to make this an economic argument, why not look at the fact that we have a for-profit prison system in our country, in the United States, that is corrupt in and of itself because these people have financial incentives to throw people in jail. That's why you see people serving these ridiculous sentences for having a little bit of marijuana or something like that. If you're going to make an economic argument, why not look at that end of it? Not the end of, well, what about all these ruthless murderers and stuff? We should just kill them instead of throwing them in jail. Why not look at the fact that, you know, your tax dollars are also going towards somebody who had a little bit of marijuana in their pocket that's serving some ridiculous sentence because of these people that are part of a for-profit prison system, making sure that they stay in jail. You know, the person in Pennsylvania that was accused, that was finally found guilty of, you know, getting these people, getting these minors in jail, getting these juveniles these sentences. I mean, a lot of that corruption goes on every day. So if you're going to make an economic argument for the death penalty, well, why not look at all this other corruption that's going on where people are profiteering off a prison system? So it's an interesting issue, and at the end of the day, these people are not going to get that 30 years of their life back. It's gone. I mean, their name's cleared at least, but 30 years, that's a long time. That's just gone. And what are they going to do now? How do you start again? How are you equipped for something like this? So it's a really bittersweet thing that they were at least found innocent, and they are free now, and they can at least try to pick up. And, you know, my heart goes out to Henry Lee and Leon, and I wish them the very best out there in the world, but it's scary that we live in a society where something like this can happen. And you'd like to think we've progressed a little bit from 1983, where, you know, a town of 4,000 people can't find two people guilty of a murder just because they were different and they were outsiders and they were pretty much forced into some bogus confession. But, you know, the reality is I think stuff that corrupt can definitely still happen in our society. You know, there's definitely, you can buy yourself the best justice money can afford, or you're shit out of luck. That's, you know, part of the problem with the justice system in this country. So, I don't know. What do you guys think? Leave your thoughts below. Leave your thoughts on the death penalty. Leave your thoughts about this case in North Carolina. Let me know what you think. This was a summary from the Indie Bohemians Morning Show. We talked a good bit about this on the radio this morning. And this is Ron Placone signing out. Talk with you tomorrow.